My name is Jason, and I always thought I was tough enough to handle anything. I'd faced my share of challenges and scares, but nothing could have prepared me for the terror I encountered in the dead of night one winter evening in 2020. It was late December, and I was on a solo road trip through the Appalachian Mountains. The winding roads and dense forests were both beautiful and eerie, especially after sunset. That night, I was driving along a particularly desolate stretch of road, the only illumination coming from my headlights cutting through the darkness. I had been driving for hours and decided to pull over at a small, remote motel I stumbled upon. The sign was faded and the building looked old, but it promised a bed and a warm shower, which was all I needed. The receptionist, an elderly man with a weathered face, gave me a key and warned me to stay inside after dark. His cryptic advice unsettled me, but I chalked it up to rural superstitions. The room was simple but clean, and I quickly settled in. Exhausted, I fell asleep almost immediately. Sometime after midnight, I was jolted awake by a loud, rhythmic banging sound. My heart raced as I listened intently, trying to pinpoint its source. The noise seemed to be coming from just outside my room. I hesitated but decided to investigate. I opened the door cautiously and stepped into the chilly night air. The parking lot was empty, and an eerie silence hung over the place. I walked around the building, my flashlight casting long, flickering shadows. The banging sound continued, growing louder and more insistent. Rounding the corner, I saw a figure standing by an old, decrepit shed. It was a woman, her back turned to me, banging on the shed door with a desperate urgency. Her hair was long and tangled, and she wore a tattered dress that fluttered in the cold breeze. I called out to her, but she didn't respond. As I approached, the air grew colder, and a sense of dread washed over me. The woman finally stopped banging and turned to face me. Her eyes were hollow and lifeless, and her face was twisted in anguish. She raised a hand, and I felt a cold, numbing sensation spread through my body. "Help me," she whispered, her voice echoing with despair. Before I could react, she vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness. I stumbled back to my room, my mind racing with fear and confusion. I locked the door and sat on the bed, trying to make sense of what I had just witnessed. The banging sound had stopped, but the memory of the woman's hollow eyes haunted me. The next morning, I spoke to the receptionist about the incident. His expression turned grave, and he reluctantly shared the story of the woman. Many years ago, a young woman named Mary had lived in the area. She had gone missing one night, and her body was never found. Locals believed her spirit haunted the motel, searching for someone to help her find peace. Determined to uncover the truth, I explored the area around the shed. Inside, I found old, rotting furniture and a tattered journal. The journal belonged to Mary and detailed her life, her love, and her tragic disappearance. In the final entry, she wrote of a man who had promised to help her but betrayed her instead. With the journal in hand, I contacted the local authorities, who agreed to reopen the cold case. The investigation led to the discovery of Mary's remains buried nearby, confirming her tragic fate. Her spirit was finally laid to rest, and the motel was no longer plagued by her haunting presence. My name is Anna, and I never believed in ghosts. But one night in 2017 changed everything. I enjoyed nighttime walks, finding solace in the quiet of my small town. On that particular night, I decided to stroll through the old cemetery, drawn by its historical charm. The air was cold, and the only sounds were the crunch of leaves beneath my feet and the distant hoot of an owl. As I wandered among the graves, a chill ran down my spine. I heard faint whispers, almost imperceptible, coming from the direction of an old, moss-covered mausoleum. Curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously approached. Inside, the whispers grew louder, forming an eerie chorus. In the dim light, I saw a flickering candle and a ghostly figure of a woman dressed in Victorian-era clothing. Her eyes were hollow and filled with sorrow. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. I am Eleanor, she replied. I was betrayed and left to die. My spirit cannot rest. Determined to help, I asked, what can I do? Find my locket, she said. It was taken from me and buried nearby. Return it and I may find peace. I searched the cemetery and found the locket buried under an ancient oak tree. Returning to the mausoleum, I placed the locket in Eleanor's hands. Her eyes softened and she smiled. Thank you, she whispered before fading away. The cemetery felt different after that, lighter and more peaceful. Whether it was a hallucination or a real encounter with the supernatural, I'll never know. But one thing is certain, the whispers in the dead of night will stay with me forever.